Starts recording the session.
No.
Great. Thanks so much, Debs. So I've met only Helen. Is Helen in your team, Tony?
She is. I'm very proud to have her as part of my team.
Oh, good. Good. I've met many of Tony's team, but I don't think we've met. Helen, have we? No.
No, we have.
Maybe
we may have been on a call. Maybe we did. Maybe we didn't. But anyway, either way, really nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. You too. So just welcome from the SAOUG, and tonight's hot topic is you bought Oracle, so now what? And really, we're going to be looking at how do we turn ERP investments into business adoption. I think really over to you, Tony and Nichola from Uptime, just to discuss this topic and let us know more about how do we get user adoption through Oracle implementations. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I think we'll just kick off with a couple of introductions. I'm Tony Cook, so I'm the founder and CEO of FudgeLearn. We've been a supporter of the SAOUG for a number of years now. I'm very proud to be part of that. And we're also part of the UK OUG as well. We were voted Training Partner of the Year last year with the UK OUG. So we specialize in capability, change and adoption across Oracle applications. So lovely to be here today, and I'll hand over to Nichola to do the same.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. So Nichola Berner, Managing Director of Uptime Consulting. We've been doing change management consulting across ERP implementations for a good 21 years. How do we bring the human along the digital transformation and changing that gap of change between the system and the humans. So looking forward to taking you through this topic. Also been part of the SAOUG for a couple of years, looking forward to going through these slides with you.
Great stuff. Okay, so let's focus in on the agenda quickly. So what we really want to talk about today is, okay, so you may have procured Oracle as a solution, ERP, HCM, or any of the other application suites. But that's just the start of the journey. We're going to run through, the change side of things, the impacts of that. If you're moving from EBS to Fusion, what really changes there, and how we recommend starting with the people, what the readiness elements of that are, and moving into capability, we'll run through a customer story, and then obviously provide some sort of key takeaways. And if we've got time or there's enough people, we'll have a Q&A, and then we'll go from there. So let's move on with it, shall we? So talking about the Oracle investment itself, obviously, if you've been through that procurement process, you've selected Oracle as your vendor. Congratulations. But obviously, that's just very much the start of what will be a very long journey for you and your organization. And it starts with, understanding what the business needs are around this solution. What are the processes, what are the responsibilities of your staff, what roles will they perform, and how to make sure that your organization is ready to receive this very integrated and constantly moving solution, so you can gain that value from it, but also to make sure that you get value from the change that's coming in your organization and the capability and adoption that's required to make sure that you get that return on investment. So those are the sort of subjects that we're going to be covering today. We have a poll that really asking people to answer in the chat here, trying to understand where people are on their journey. So are you still on EBS planning your move? Are you already through down in that phase preparing for that go live? Are you considering AI and automation, or, you know, are you actually underway yourself, or indeed are you live and facing, you know, some of those challenges as you go along? You know, drop us a note in the chat, and we can come back to some of those points as we continue to go through the presentation. So moving on, I think my colleague here, Nichola, is going to talk around some of the issues around target operating models and what's important with those, and I'll drop in as we go as well. So I'll hand over to you here now, Nichola.
Perfect. Yeah. So buying Oracle obviously is the first step, but it's more than just a technology change. For us, with the moving into the Fusion model, is to prepare for this, you need to really look at your target operating model. So how is the business going to work and operate with Oracle Fusion? And this is the most important part for us. Before you start the implementation, you've bought the product. Do you set yourself up to have the right people in the right positions for the transformation? And understanding the target operating model, looking at the future fit on those roles. What are the roles and responsibilities? Making sure it's role mapped, and who's going to be part of not only the project but the business readiness, the business process for the future state. Look at the processes. Do we have a standardized workflow? What does the process ownership look like? Let's identify the change impact. What is the change? How big is the gap? And look at that readiness that we need to do. The capability and adoption around the role readiness. Do we have the right fit and the right people in the right seats? Ways of working is really something that needs to be articulated when you move into cloud. Because there is a lot of ways of working, processes that need to change, and then how do we embed that adoption? And a lot of it is around the reporting and the segregation of duties. So we honestly believe that the target operating model fitting into the Oracle implementation needs to be looked at before we kick off the project, identifying those key people, and making sure that you have the right players so that you actually have the readiness in place when we start going into those initial workshops to scoping what needs to be done per module, per area in business. If there needs to be backfilling, if there needs to be identification of those subject matter experts that need to be done. So it's a lot more than just how do we plug this technology in, but how do we actually plug all of the people around that to support it on the journey. I don't know, Tony, if you want to jump in on any other elements on that.
Yeah, I very much do. And the reason why I want to is that I've yet to be on a project that's got this right. Mm-hmm. And often it's consideration that's laid down too late. And, you know, it impacts everything that your organization needs to do. So without identifying what that the future state operating model is going to be, you know, how do you know how the roles of the organization can map to the roles of the system, and therefore who is actually responsible for which tasks? Where's the approval hierarchy? Where do the segregation of duties and the controls need to be in place for those segregation of duties? And then equally, how do you get meaningful data out of the system and report on it effectively? So these are really key considerations. And quite often, you know, we get to a point in a program where, you know, we're trying to do this for a customer because, you know, it's something that's been considered far too late. So if take nothing else from this conversation today, this is one of the most important things that needs to be done, in my opinion. So yeah, absolutely with you on this. And you know, I think one of my other suggestions is, because you may be moving from one Oracle product to another one, don't think your target operating model isn't going to change, because it will. And they could have implications on your HR team as well. So be mindful of that, and you know, think this through very carefully, and spend some good time on it, because it will pay back in dividends.
For sure, I agree.
So
Yeah.
talk about EBS to cloud. What have you got for us now, Nichola?
Yeah, what it really changes, I think, as you mentioned, it's a re-implementation. It's not just an upgrade. EBS to Fusion is a complete re-implementation. Obviously, there's a lot of data that you can reuse and some of the processes that you had, but there is quite a substantial jump to the Fusion cloud option. So making sure that you really articulate it, that you're going to need the teams around you from a tech, business process and subject matter experts into this re-implementation, making sure that those right business people are in those initial workshops so you've got it scoped correctly. The biggest learning for us is the wrong people are brought on in the beginning. They go through those initial workshops to identify the business processes, and then we find out, oh, we forgot this person, and that always makes that section of the project very long, just to articulate the actual scope and what needs to be done. And for the people, it is a completely new experience. The feel, the look, the way that that Fusion is from EBS. We're needing to make sure that they're taken along the journey. They understand what the screens look like, the kind of capability that you have in Fusion. So making sure those right people are in the right place. And you have the right technology support process with a re-implementation from there. Yeah, so over to you, Tony, on the operating model.
Well, I think just before I get to that point, I think one of the key things for me is about educating the SMEs in the processes that Fusion supports, and then how that can be reversed engineered to give them the knowledge they need to make the right decisions in those design phases, because quite often you get into UAT and suddenly people are testing the system saying, we don't actually work like this. And then suddenly you've got a bit of a problem on your hands. So get those people educated, get them educated early is my suggestion. But just coming back to the operating model piece, quite often I've seen many projects where the future operating model and support mechanisms and the IT teams that need to underpin all of that within the new ways of working needs to be taken through that cutover phase and driven into BAU. It's really important that that happens. And whether that's a Fusion implementation from EBS or it's a Fusion implementation from a legacy system that's non-Oracle, that still needs to happen, because you're going to get 4 mandatory updates a year. And within those, there are items that you have to accept, whether that's a regulatory piece or whether that's a system fix. You have to accept it. You can defer some items, and there will be additional elements of the features and functions you can build into a plan to accept and roll out into the organization. But don't forget that change needs to be managed as well. So all of that needs to be catered for in the operating model that you're going to put in place to maintain and enhance that system, because you really want to get the most value out of this product. So to do so, you need to look at a plan of how you can adopt that on an ongoing basis. So I think that's a really important lesson that a lot of our customers have learned, a year or 2 down the line, because if you don't gear up for it, then you're not going to be able to adopt all of those new features and functions, really.
And having that support in the IT team where they have that operating model to support the upgrades, the technical elements, and then obviously, like you say, the adoption journey of whatever has adjusted during that time. You can't bring back the entire project team 4 times a year. So making sure you have that capability in your business is hugely valuable.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. So moving on to the readiness piece then, Nichola, do you want to touch on the key elements here as
Right,
well?
yeah. I think with cloud and AI readiness, the worst thing to do is make the assumption that people will just adopt this. There are definitely businesses and business users that are very petrified of the words cloud. Where is my data being stored? Well, it's an unknown. And then you bring in the AI capability within cloud as well, or Fusion. The concerns are, do they understand the digital behaviors that they need to adopt? How big is that gap for them? Looking at their technology readiness for that AI and cloud is not going to be taking their jobs. I mean, we get that quite a lot of times where I'm scared about these AI functionality that's within the system. It's about making sure that we have the human in the loop on the fact that these are really good advances on how we can use that data and how that data can actually assist us in forecasting, in the reporting. And this is a big step that is really missed. We look at how do you do the training, click, click, click. But if you're not taking them along the journey on the benefits and the why we've got the AI capability in the system, and that cloud is not just a cloud in the sky, it is an actual structured setup, and it's safe and secure. So this is a really big step that we need to look at around, how do we absorb that change? Clearly identifying the data ownership. The biggest risk on pretty much any implementation is if we're putting garbage in, we've got garbage out. So there has to be clear ownership around the master data management, the cleanup of the master data. How does that impact your system, your reporting? And the devil is in the detail in your data. So making sure that you have that in your operating model, that the governance and the data cleanup is if someone is looking in that. Generally, we find on projects that's only comes in when we hit that moment. And then can business actually handle the continuous change? The continuous change in terms of the quarterly updates, the AI readiness, the workflows, it is a continuous change. So not just on the target operating model on terms of the technology perspective and how that's supported, but is there a change component within the business that needs to be left behind or educated so that these change agents can assist with the adoption? It's not just change, it's adoption of the system and actually get the true value out of the system. And make sure the workforce is ready for everything that's going to come through in this adoption process. So
yeah, and I think also, looking at some of the AI capability that's coming. A lot of customers I know use a tool called, it's free from Oracle, it's called AI Success Navigator. And fundamentally within that, as soon as you buy the Oracle solution, you get access to AI Success Navigator as a customer. And within that, not only does it have a lot of the early training pieces that I was talking about in terms of those processes that's been developed and provided free of charge from Oracle University, you've also got a really strong planning tool within that product to then plan out what AI features you're going to switch on, when you're going to switch them on, what those features are providing, how you use them, etc. And then within that, you can also procure an additional product called Oracle Guided Learning. The links to both of these are in this presentation that we're going to share to everyone. And obviously Oracle Guided Learning is there for that adoption piece to support users in that flow of work with guidance and with regulatory or policy-based information, or just to safeguard, from a data integrity perspective, that there's specific forms and elements within the system itself in the fields that need to be completed in a correct way before a user can complete the task. So therefore, you're creating that governance piece by using tools like Oracle Guided Learning live in the system. But then obviously being able to plan ahead about what you adopt, when you adopt it, and then how you can manage that change throughout the organization. So there are tools there to support this that Oracle provides. But alongside that, obviously, you need to have a meaningful ongoing change management solution that sits behind it, right?
Definitely. It definitely helps the journey, make it easier.
Yeah, indeed. And from a communications perspective, obviously Oracle Guided Learning can provide just-in-time information to those users live in the system. So you don't even need to promote that information anywhere else.
No,
So,
it's so much easier to use it within the system, even adding in a little video from your sponsor on the journey. It's quite nice to add that customization and the personalization as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we build that readiness then?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we talk about building the readiness, putting in the target operating model, but I think, you know, you've bought the Oracle system, and this is generally where the project is initiated. But really, to get the true value of this Oracle implementation, you need to do a before implementation, making sure that you've got all of the right teammates in the right places. So like we mentioned, putting that target operating model in place and knowing who those team members are. But when you know who those team members are, and especially the business impacted users, we need to really understand what is the change impact, how big is that gap that those individuals are going to need to jump from one version to the next, whichever way it is. Clearly articulating their roles on the project, the business representation on the project, and then the stakeholder engagement is very important from your leadership, making sure your leadership are aligned on what is the output, what does success look like, why are we doing this implementation, and what are the actual return on investment indicators that we can have for the implementation. A lot of the times we're kind of creating that as we go so we can see the benefit realization. But I think it's very important for us to articulate this before any implementation. What does success look like to each leader? And obviously from a technology perspective, the success would be people are actually using the system and logging on. But from a finance department, that may be that they've managed to do their month end quicker, faster, their month end, year end, quarterly ends. So articulating that all the way through all of the people, and then understanding how big that gap is so we can take people through the journey, not just change, but the adoption journey that needs to happen throughout that transition from there. And then leading into the delivery, Tony's going to talk us through the delivery around the testing phase. I'm going to hand over to you, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a mantra, and that is test what you train and train what you test. So it's really important that from a capability perspective that, you know, the scenarios are agreed. You understand the right scenarios. The test scripts validate against those scenarios. The unit testing rolls up into your end-to-end testing, and that feeds into the correct training that you need to deliver for your user community. So it's really important that testing and training and capability building are interlinked. And quite often I've been on many projects where that just isn't the case. So, you know, that makes life very difficult for you know, a capability team where they're actually retesting a system because, you know, the test scripts aren't completed effectively. There's not enough data in the test scripts, for example. You know, the evidence isn't there to say, you know, the test has passed and why, for example. So these things need to be thoroughly thought about, and not just that. You know, it's about being able to demonstrate that readiness as well. You know, if you've got test scripts, you've evidenced that they've passed, when it comes to being audited, which most programs are, you can validate the fact that you are ready. Okay. Alongside that, you can map your capability matrices and your scorecarding against what the people in your business will actually be doing. And you can validate that by using these mechanisms. And again, that demonstrates to your leaders and to your auditors that you are ready to go live, along with the checkpoints that align to those. So I think that, you know, making sure that there's some thorough thinking and delivery mechanisms around this is absolutely vital to making sure that you're not doing things twice or three times, therefore you're saving money. But more importantly, you're following one golden thread throughout, and therefore you can validate at every checkpoint. So I think that's a really key lesson that, you know, I know from some projects I've been on where projects have been delayed for anything up to 5 months because this element of the implementation hasn't been managed effectively, and therefore it just adds additional costs to your budget, which, you know, no one really wants, do they?
No, not at all. But if we scoped it correctly and we've got the right business people within that to articulate what we need, testing technically should work pretty simply, and ideating that and then linking into training. And I think what we, you know, Tony and I, we've seen on projects before is there's different service providers that come in, excuse me, from a training, testing, and a change management, where the power is actually bringing that all together. If we've managed to scope and ideate the initial workshops to assist in the initial build, the testing and the training gaps are a lot smaller, and that adoption journey is much easier because there's less resistance, there's less confusion through that, which really helps with the next point on reinforcement. Reinforcing we're on the same journey along the whole implementation rather than changing direction all the time.
Yeah, and with that, obviously, is the additional support that, you know, if an organization adopts, you know, a digital adoption platform such as guided learning, you've got that thread running throughout as well. So you know where the handoffs are from, you know, instructor-based, you know, training or, you know, guidance that you're providing ahead of go live, but then you've got Oracle guided learning supporting all of that and driving that adoption throughout. And then you mature that product as you go along into BAU, and you go through various releases in your Oracle platform. So it's really about, you know, underpinning all of that and making sure that your organization have got the support throughout the life cycle of being a Fusion user, because, you know, as I say, this thing doesn't sit still. So it's about, you know, continued reinforcement, continued support, getting that confidence to your user community. And we talk about the two C's, competence and confidence, right? And that's so important to make sure that the support is there throughout. Absolutely.
And the visibility, let's communicate it, let's show it. You know, people don't resist change, they resist being excluded from the change. So making sure that everyone understands and has that visibility through the journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, talking about, you know, some of the I think we may have covered some of this already, but, you know, obviously there's a lot of elements that come into that piece that we call capability. You know, it's not just about, you know, having a particular skill. It's about understanding the principles and the concepts and the why, not just the how. And then learning from that experience, looking at how your behaviors are changing, and then, you know, really trying to develop that into a continued mindset of adoption, looking at the benefits that come from that, but underpinning that with the right tools, the right resources that are needed to continually drive that capability piece. You know, I've spoken to so many customers that have gone live recently, or even in the last year, that really they don't understand what they have. You know, they don't understand how the data flows through the system, you know, the integrated elements of Fusion and what happens upstream and downstream, you know, if errors are made and why, etc. So, you know, being able to provide that information, the contextualized piece around all of that is absolutely critical, not just about click here, click there. It's about understanding the wider picture and the understanding of the flow of work as well. So, that is a piece that's managed through really good change management as well, really good communication, but also, well thought out training and ongoing support of that training as well. Have you had anything to add to that, Nichola?
Yeah, I think understanding that bigger picture of what my area in the business impacts upstream and downstream, it gives you a good sense of accountability, which can be instilled in the team, because you then understand the impact of, I may have just clicked here and I've chosen the wrong piece of information, but you don't realize the downstream or upstream impact that can happen to your financial year end or your HCM process, whatever it may be. So it builds that fostering understanding of accountability and understanding the journey of business, and the clean data again coming back into it. Put some really good stuff in there, and reinforcing that with the communication, the visibility is so important. And I think it's so nice that we're moving away from just training the clicks to a user journey of capability. We're not just showing you the one element, but linking this more into the HR speak around how do we educate our staff so that they can advance through the technology, not just use the technology for doing actions. So that's really nice of how we're kind of progressing in terms of the implementations.
Yeah, and I think just one last key thing I would say is when you build capability and confidence, that drives innovation, because your staff will be creative. They will think about, hold on, is there some form of AI that we can implement in this particular area that will either streamline a process or give back some time in the day, so that they can become more productive in different areas. So there's a real benefit to this. It's a tangible benefit, and that only helps the organization to innovate and to grow and to become more forward thinking.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what we've got to do, and businesses are evolving every single day, so we need to think about it, how we can make it better and more fun for the individuals, as at the end of the day they've got to do this job all day every day, so make it more fun so they understand the journey as well.
Absolutely. So talking about journeys, nice segue. Should we talk about a customer
one of our examples
we both helped together?
Yeah, so this was quite a nice fun implementation where we got to really understand the joint of good change management and good capability building, our journey with the end users. So we helped on an Oracle Fusion finance implementation. They went through the OTC, record to report, and procurement or procure to pay. What was really interesting about this scenario is they had come off a failed implementation, a failed ERP implementation. So the starting point for us was quite difficult, because the business, their perception was, well, is this one going to work? How are we going to get through this? So from there was really the key problem was the leadership alignment. It was inconsistent because of the negativity around a failed implementation. We had implementation partner that was executing a little bit of confusion across the different teams, and they were struggling to mobilize and coordinate how to get this done in practical terms. So what we managed to do from a change management perspective, and then also from an end user training perspective, is really just breaking down those silos on what is a good ERP implementation, what does good look like, aligning those leadership teams so that we all knew, or they all knew, what was the successful return on investment keys that they wanted to see at the end of this implementation. What was the drive for each of those areas, and from there elevating that to their teams through also a really good target operating model where they mobilize their teams in the right positions for the future state. This then made it a lot easier for us to then cascade that information from a change management perspective, bring together all the stakeholders on the journey, and with that have the right people in the user acceptance testing, the right people in the end user training, and success in the actual go live. The really good story for us around this was the post go live, and what we actually started to see on the return on investment was they were taking pretty much a month to complete their month ends. So they were just rolling from month to month to month without even having enough time to sit back, evaluate, clearly articulate where they could look at better processes. And when we kind of finalized that handover and support process with a really good target operating model in IT to support, they've managed to bring their month-end processes down to 2 weeks, and now recently believe that they have managed to bring that down to between 4 to 5 days, where they are managing to complete their month end through this implementation, through process optimization, making sure they've got the right people. And with that, now looking at how do they take that information and the time to evaluate what's in the system and start looking at the better approach for the future. And this was where Tony and I started having these conversations on, if you have an integrated team from the adoption process, and you look at that initial part from your leadership alignment, how you bring your team together and clearly articulate the expectations, it can be successful, and you can get really good, amazing quick wins from this. And yeah, it was a great journey. It was a tough one. It was, obviously, as any ERP implementation, you've got to bring everyone onto the same journey into the right direction. But just that proof in the pudding is they saved themselves 3 weeks every month to be able to do other business and to look at optimizing the rest of the items in that department. Tony, I don't know if there was anything else that you can add into that awesome experience that we went through.
Well, I would say that the change was handled so well. The leadership was so good that, the staff were just desperate to learn. They were so keen to learn and absorb the information and understand and take on the new knowledge and new ways of working, that there wasn't that reticence or boundaries to get that knowledge across, which was fantastic, and really great group of people to work with. So I think you're right, setting that all up correctly in the first place makes a huge amount of difference. Absolutely. Now I'm conscious of time.
Yeah, but the one point is making sure that when you do your implementation, make sure you support yourself with a good SI that can support you through this process, I think, as well, is very valid, and the buy-in from the team itself. Which is also good. But yes, conscious of time, why readiness matters. I think obviously from a stats perspective, as Gartner says, 70% of ERP initiatives fail to meet their original business goals. So with that stat alone, we really have to focus on getting the basics right, making sure the right team members are in there to really get that return on investment. Why are we doing this? It's not just to implement a system. You want to get the people to use the system. And that's really the journey and why we are so passionate about this with the adoption journey that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. It is all about that return on investment. It's and it's not a small investment. We all know that. Let alone the software costs. It's the implementation costs that align with that as well. So let's work together and make sure that ROI is completely realized. It's the important thing at the end of the day. And the other stat I would say is that there's I think it's about 47% of ERP projects that fail because of a lack of adoption. So that's a big ticket item that needs to be seriously considered. Moving that on, then we've got key 5 questions. So we talk about, do we understand how the roles will change? That's a key thing. That target operating model will allow you to understand that. From there, you can identify what the change impacts are. And that drives the capability that you need to be able to underpin the new ways of working and the new roles within the organization. And then from that point, you then start moving into AI change. Can you build that into this implementation? Do you leave that till the processes are embedded first, that there's decisions there to be made? And then alongside that entire thread, how do you measure that adoption, that productivity, that return on investment? What are the key metrics that you're measuring against? And they are 5 critical questions that we believe that any implementation team and an organization should be asking themselves. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to that, Nichola.
Yeah, I think just as those key takeaways, tech alone won't deliver. So we can implement and we can have this amazing tech that stood up, but if we don't bring the adoption along the journey and making sure that people are utilizing this amazing ability in the system, why are we doing all of this? So yeah, just bring those people along the journey, make sure that people actually feel it, they understand it, they articulate it, and that just helps the entire adoption journey from initiation to post-go live support. Put in that good target operating model so you support it year on year with those quarterly updates. And yeah, make sure that you understand why are we doing this? Make sure the leaders are aligned so that we've got that support.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've just got to move on to Q&A, see if there's any questions coming through the chat. I've just realized that there's a lot of sun shining in my face at the moment on the camera, so I apologize for that. I am actually in England, we do have sunshine.
Yeah, every once in a while you have sunshine. You should really enjoy it though.
Exactly that. Yeah, I'm aware that we are really up on time, but if there's any questions that people have, they want to talk to us. I know just putting up some QR codes here where people can reach out to my team and reach out to your team, Nichola. So we'll just leave those up for a couple of minutes. But I think from my perspective, I think the capability piece, the change management aspects, and the readiness now, people are starting to really understand this, and it's taken a little while, but I think we're getting there, and I think I can encourage people more and more to really pay a lot of attention to this particular facet of an implementation, and try not to undervalue it, because it is very critical to making your implementation a success. I don't know if you had any passing wisdom before we call time, Nichola, to add to that.
Yeah, I think sometimes it is as simple as let's just bring everyone on the journey. They don't want to resist it. They just want to know what's going on in the journey. So I do see Lisa's got her hand up, and Debs has got a very interesting question in the chat. So Lisa, let's go to you on your question.
Hi, I was just alerting Tony to the thing in the chat, basically, because it's about operating models and what have you. I was just alerting to that.
Okay, into the chat.
Okay. So the question is, what does a people-centric operating model look like when AI agents become part of the workforce? That's an interesting question, and I think there's 2 sides to this, right? Because in Oracle, you have agents and you have agentic applications. Now, I think it's pretty clear that we don't confuse the 2 things. Now, an agentic application is there to manage really an entire role within an organization. An agent is to support a role within an organization. So, really those roles will redefine depending on what elements of the AI capability that you're actually implementing. And that's what plays into that target operating model. You need to understand where those agents will fit, what roles they will be performing, and what value they're adding to the existing roles that you currently have in your organization, that enable people to become more effective. So it's not a case of replacing people. It's a case of making your staff more more efficient, and to be doing, more analytical work for the organization to drive more value for your organization. And I think it's understanding those things and where they sit. And I think that comes back to that education piece where I talked about using Success Navigator to understand what those AI capabilities are, and then how they're going to fit into your new target operating model, and then having a mechanism of how you roll those out. Are you going to do that throughout this implementation, or are you going to take the system live first and then start bedding in the agentic applications or the AI agents as you see fit? One word of warning: the agentic AI does come with a pretty hefty price point. So you might want to rethink that strategy depending on how big your budget is. So, there's lots of things to consider, I would say. I don't know if Nicola, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, your AI agents are working with your people, and they are working with the data that the people are providing them to assist them in those areas. So I wouldn't see them really sitting in the operating model as someone that would be providing information. They may be taking the data and providing a different context and view at how they've analyzed that information. But again, I think, people-centric operating model, where we bring those AI agents clearly, like you said, Tony, into what is their role, what would that output be, and then clearly articulating that from an expectation and mapping that from there. But they are working off the data sets that are within the system, and how that should be integrated in there.
Yeah. We have another question here. What are the early signs that adoption is at risk? I'll let you go first on this one, Nicola.
Yeah, look, I think early adoption warnings during project. I mean, there's multiple areas of where this adoption risks do happen. Initiating the implementation and bringing the team members in just to scope and understand what they need to do in the project. That's your first point of risks or warning signs, just by seeing who wants to actually be part of the project, who wants to impart their knowledge into the implementation from a subject matter expert. And those human responses, the coffee conversations, the water cooler conversations, the not willing to share. That's definitely the first step point, keeping it very guarded and to themselves. And during the implementation, as you go through, a lot of the risks is just avoidance, not wanting to be part of it, not wanting to read the information. There's a lot of markers that you can see, that happens during the implementation, but definitely people showing up at training, people actually completing the training, avoiding meetings, that leadership alignment. If we don't have that leadership that shows that this is the important implementation, that can very much cut down those early warning signs of adoption. I think that needs to just, if your leader is not telling you how important this project is, that's your first risk. And then going from there. And then, post go live, or from the day of go live, we've got lots of stats to know who's logged on, who's used the system, and just working through that resistance management step by step. But I think the biggest point, step one, get those leaders to show up and to ensure that their team know why they're here and the importance of what the project's about, and what is the success of this for those individuals.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think we're pretty much out of time. Michelle, are we used everyone's time up? We could talk about this all day long, by the way.
Yeah, just keep us going.
Did me dropping in give you the idea that it's time for you?
Yeah, I mean, your image there, we're like, okay, and time is up.
Yeah, no, thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Tony. I think it's a really great knowledge transfer and just giving us a broad-based understanding of some of the things to look out for. I personally particularly like the part about the target operating model, because I think it's something that's really often overlooked. We're just implementing tech, and we don't need to change our way of working or how our team is structured. And then the tech lands, and of course they don't have the right people in the right places, or they've got too many people because, you know, things have been trimmed down. But yeah, so I found it really valuable. Thank you so much. I don't know if anyone on the call wants to just have a final comment to Tony or Nicola. You're more than welcome to come off mute as well.
Thank you so much, Tony and Nicola. Another fantastic, well thought out webinar. Could listen to you guys a lot. I did have a lot more questions, but I'll take those offline. But thank you very much indeed. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Scan our QR code and we can have a long conversation about any of that.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
brilliant.
I see Lisa's busy typing, so I'm assuming she's going to just do her final comments there. Yeah, thank you. Target operating model is key, she says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, as they've said, if you want to know more, please reach out to them directly. QR codes are on the screen. Scan now. And then just a reminder to everyone who's on the call that we do have our SAOUG conference coming up at the end of the year. It's from the 11th to the 13th of November, based in Cape Town. We'll be having some fun in the aquarium. So, Tony, we look forward to hosting you and some of your teammates. But yeah, that's really it from myself. Debs, is there anything you want to close out the call with?
I think it's been very well covered, and what an excellent webinar. Thank you so much for the preparation, for the passion, for the commitment. It is so appreciated.
Thanks.
See you at the next one.
See you at the next one in September.
Well done, guys.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye all. Bye. Bye.